Welcome to this explainer from Witnesses to Happiness. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Let's just take a moment to step into a quiet, meditative space together, shall we? Today, we are exploring a topic that is just so deeply misunderstood, yet profoundly beautiful. We're going to dive into a comprehensive look at the historical, psychological, and sociocultural realities of the tarot. So take a nice, deep breath, leave the noise of the outside world behind, and let's explore how these 78 cards can act as your own trusted spiritual mentor. The cards speak. Are you listening? Now, this is the really profound question we need to start with. For literally centuries, people have approached the tarot with this heavy sense of fatalism, asking it to dictate exactly what is going to happen tomorrow or exactly when they'll finally find love. But as our source material reveals, tarot isn't actually a tool for fixed fortune telling, not at all. It is a mirror for your soul. It reflects your inner landscape, your hidden fears, and your greatest, most beautiful potentials. Okay, so let's dive into this by clearing away some of the illusions right off the bat. Back in the late 18th century, there was this clergyman named Antoine Court de Gébelin, and he sparked this massive trend. He claimed that tarot cards were actually the lost pages of the ancient Egyptian Book of Thoth. Sounds incredibly mystical, right? Well, here is the grounding truth. There is absolutely zero historical evidence for that. None. The cards actually originated much later, in the early Renaissance, specifically in 15th century northern Italy. The true evolution of the tarot is such a fascinating journey on its own. So, in the 14th century, abstract Islamic playing cards from Mamluk Egypt arrived in Europe, and they brought the four suits we actually still use today, which are swords, wands, cups, and coins. Then, by the 15th century, northern Italian nobility added a fifth suit. They called it the triumphi, or trumps, and these featured really beautiful Christian allegorical art. But here's the kicker. These were purely for playing a tactical card game. It wasn't until way later in the 18th century that a French occultist named Aquila created the very first system specifically meant for divination. So the magic wasn't ancient at all. It was actually added on later. This history is absolutely crucial because understanding it actually frees us. If the cards aren't some ancient magical oracle, what exactly are they doing when we ask them about our future? Well, they simply extrapolate the status quo. Think of it kind of like a weather forecast based on current conditions. The cards show probable developments, but your future? It always remains entirely fluid. It is totally formable by your own beautiful free will. To truly understand how this works, we can look to psychology. Our source research highlights this fascinating mechanism called projection. You see, tarot cards are super rich in symbols, but they're also ambiguous enough to let your own mind fill in the blanks. Take the Three of Swords card, for example, which shows a heart pierced by three blades. Someone going through a breakup is going to look at that and see romantic betrayal. But someone facing a health scare might see physical anxiety. Or someone dealing with workplace conflict might see harsh criticism. The card itself holds no specific, rigid message. It merely holds the space for your own unique truth to surface. We can deepen this understanding even further through the lens of Carl Jung. He viewed the major figures in the tarot as universal archetypes. These are basically images that reside in the collective unconscious of all humanity. Jung used the term synchronicity to explain why the card you randomly pull so often perfectly resonates with your life. It is a meaningful coincidence, where an outer event, like drawing a specific piece of paper, aligns flawlessly with your inner psychological state. It brings what is hidden right into the light. Now, our minds are naturally designed to seek out meaning and connection, and they do this through cognitive phenomena like the Barnum Effect and confirmation bias. When a reading says something like, "You have untapped potential you are afraid to show," we immediately feel deeply seen, right? Even though that statement honestly applies to almost everyone. But rather than seeing this as some sort of trick, we can view it compassionately. It is just a beautiful, natural way our brains weave meaning and find deep resonance with the cards. I also really want to gently dispel the fears surrounding the so-called shadow cards. Pop culture has made these look absolutely terrifying, but their true spiritual wisdom is incredibly healing. Take the Death card, for instance. It rarely means physical passing. It actually represents transformation and the necessary ending of old cycles to make way for the new. The Devil? That doesn't mean demonic possession. It is actually a gentle invitation to examine our voluntary bondage, our addictions, and our shadow selves. And the Tower? Oh, it is not a total catastrophe. It is simply the sudden, liberating collapse of illusions that were built on false foundations. And I also want to reassure those of you who might feel a sudden wave of panic when you draw a card upside down. This is just another area where misunderstanding breeds unnecessary fear. A reversed card does not mean the exact opposite of the card's meaning, and it certainly does not spell doom. As our source explains, it simply reveals that the energy of the card is blocked, weakened, or maybe it is just playing out internally rather than externally. Even a very difficult card, when drawn in reverse, can be this gentle whisper that your inner healing process has finally begun. The cards speak. Are you listening? I think it is really time we dismantle the elitist gatekeeping in the tarot community. First of all, you do not need to be born with some magical psychic gift to read these cards. Tarot is simply a visual language, and just like any language, it can be learned by anyone. Furthermore, that old myth that you have to wait for someone to gift you your first deck, please, let that go. You absolutely can, and honestly, you should, buy your own deck. Choose the art that really speaks to your spirit, because your intuition is going to grow naturally through practice, empathy, and your personal connection to the imagery.
However, as your guide, I feel I must also protect you by exposing how vulnerable people are sometimes exploited. The source material outlines deceptive cold reading tactics used by those who falsely claim to have supernatural powers. There's shotgunning, which is just firing off vague guesses, like throwing out a letter of a name until you confirm one. Then there's the rainbow ruse, which is telling you that you're very patient but sometimes lose your temper, basically covering all the bases so they can't be wrong. And warm reading uses visual clues, like noticing an expensive watch or a sad expression. Knowing these tactics empowers you to seek genuine introspection, not cheap parlor tricks.
In fact, a 2011 ruling by the German Federal Court of Justice established a really profound reality check here. They ruled that objective magic, legally and scientifically speaking, cannot be bought. True guidance will never ever promise you a guaranteed future outcome, and it will certainly never demand exorbitant fees to remove a curse or clear out bad energy. Anyone selling you a curse removal is not offering spiritual aid. They are intentionally creating a toxic dependency. True tarot practice is about empowering you to heal yourself. So, how exactly do we use this beautiful tool in a healthy, grounded way? Well, there are some deeply practical applications. You can use it for daily journaling, just pulling one card in the morning to set an intention or reflect on your current mood. In therapy or coaching, it's often used for externalization, taking a fear that is just too hard to speak aloud and placing it physically on the table as an image. It also really helps with reframing, helping you look for actionable solutions instead of just dwelling on blockages. Most importantly, it builds self-efficacy. It shifts your entire mindset from a passive, what will happen to me, to a highly empowered, what can I do today? As we bring this meditative explainer to a close, I want to leave you with this one thought. The tarot is not a window into some unchangeable tomorrow. It is a powerful, historically rich, and psychologically profound mirror of your own inner wisdom. The real magic isn't in the ink or the paper. The magic is in your ability to reflect, to grow, and to take charge of your own beautiful narrative. So, what are you ready to see in your own mirror today? The cards speak. Are you listening?